of year in the NFL, we get to competition committee stuff. We get to potential rule changes. And something that's great about the NFL is, unlike a lot of these other sports, especially like MLB is a big one that I think of, where it feels like passing any sort of new rule is just like pulling teeth and people get all up in arms about like, oh, the spirit of the game or whatever. The NFL tinkers with this product quite a bit, and I think that has led to, I mean, it's led to some failures, but it's also led to some great innovations that you look back and you think, how is the game not like this before? Even some of the ones that come to mind, like in terms of how replay is used, like the replay assist that got rolled out this season, where you can just, they don't even have to go to an actual replay or a challenge to quickly change the play in terms of how it was called. It's stuff like that that I think it's really cool that the NFL is willing to tinker with their product. They've got 4 new rule changes that were proposed by the teams to potentially be passed. We'll talk about all of them here. I like a decent chunk of these, but we'll start with the one that I think I like the most. I think it's not going to get passed. I think a lot of teams, especially the good teams, or the good teams in bad divisions, may not like it. But I think it would be good for the competitiveness of the sport. That's the changes to the playoff seeding. So the Lions proposed this in saying, if you are a team that is a wildcard team, but you have a better record than a division winner, you will now be seeded higher than that division winner. So essentially, I think the idea is your 4 division winners still get in no matter what, but then once the cutoff is met, once we know the 7 teams that are in the playoffs, they are then seeded purely based on record. It's not that if you win a division, you get a home game. It's just based on how many games you've won or lost. I think this is great, and I think this is something that should have been done a long time ago. What do you think, Simon?
I do agree. I do think that it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's the logical thing to do, right? Because at the end of the day, teams get screwed over every single season because of this rule. Every year. Like, it's not like every once in a while you see a team that kind of gets screwed over by it, but at the end of the day, it's still... No, that's not how it works here. Like, this is something that actively messes up a lot of playoff teams' chances. We see teams with, like, 11 wins get knocked out because of shit like this. Like, it's a rule that's needed to change. At the same time, I kind of love it because I love the fact that it creates underdogs. In the same way that it screws over teams, occasionally you see, like, I don't remember what year it was, but I think it was was it NFC South or AFC South? I don't even remember anymore. But one of the two, we saw a team sneak in with a losing record in the last little bit. Hell, in the early 2010s, we saw Seattle sneak in with a losing record, right? I think when you see stuff like that, it's just kind of fun, right? Because more often than not, that team's going to get the absolute shit beaten out of them. But there'll be that one rare chance. It's exactly why everybody, I mean, it's March Madness season right now, why everybody loves the 1 versus 16 and the first rounds where you get to see like that occasional Cinderella team do something special, right? Like, it kind of creates that, which I think will be missed. But at the end of the day, it's a rule that needs to change. You can't screw over deserving teams to create that effect.
I will say, I think the nuance of it is that you will still have those losing teams. It's just that they won't be playing at home. So the possibility for the Cinderella matchup is still there. It's just that, like, if you're talking back to the Seattle 2010 example, they'd still make it in the playoffs and still probably play the Saints or whatever. But they would be, instead of the whatever I assume they were the 4 seed at that point. Instead of the 4 seed, they would have been like the 6 seed, right? The last possible seed, and they would have had to play the highest seed at that point.
Okay,
on the road.
Okay, but then I'm all for
so
it.
it's not.
Yeah, then I'm all for it.
It's not that division winners are not going to make the playoffs anymore, because the NFL would never pass that. That's one thing where they're like baseball in that way, where they're like, oh, we got to protect the sanctity of the division or whatever, which I think even that is stupid.
Yeah,
but no,
I agree. But no, go ahead.
With this one, it's like, yeah, all it is about home field advantage and what matchups you get. So I think it's surprising the Lions are. It's not surprising the Lions are doing this considering their division, but they were kind of. They weren't the ones that got screwed over by this last year. It was their division rivals in Minnesota when they lost to Detroit in that last game of the season, and then instead of getting the bye, having to go on the road to LA, and on the road to LA. No, that would mean instead of doing that, they'd be the 2 seed and would play whoever the 7 seed was this year in Minnesota.
Huh.
So those teams, it doesn't matter who, it doesn't change who gets in, but it changes the context around it, and maybe Minnesota wins that game, right? And that would feel a little bit more earned and deserved based on the regular season they had.
Right. Okay, I misunderstand the rule. That's completely my bad. I do like that. I do think that makes a ton of sense. I like the fact that it still is going to keep that Cinderella thing, because, I mean, that was my one criticism. I think that's something special that the NFL has that I don't really think any of the other major leagues really has to the same level. Like, you see it in college sports, but other than that, it's not necessarily there. I definitely like it. I think it would make a lot more sense. I hope, like we were kind of talking about, the chances that it happens are sort of slim. But I think it'd be cool. I'd be up for it.
Yeah. I think the one criticism, I guess, of it is a lot of the things I see when people are defending like how reliant the NFL is on divisions is like, do you risk watering down that at all in terms of the rivalries and the importance of those divisional games? That's kind of the worry. Because I've heard some people compare it to the NBA in a not great fashion to say like in the NBA divisions don't mean shit.
Yeah.
But that's not true in football. I don't think it would change it that much because you're not losing the playoff spot. But would that be something you think? Like
I think that's interesting too, because at this point, yeah, lifelong NBA fan to a certain degree. I don't even know if I could tell you who are in the Lakers division. I honestly couldn't, because the way I've always looked at it, it's Western Conference and it's Eastern Conference. Divisions don't matter at all. The funny thing is, in the NHL, it doesn't necessarily matter that much, really, but it matters.
It does
more.
there too.
Yeah, it matters more. Yeah, like there's still like the rivalries there, and I think it's mainly just because of how often you play your division rivals, right? That's still there, and I think that'd still be the thing in the NFL, obviously. But I don't know. I think that I do agree with that sentiment of wanting to keep division games special, because I do think that is important, because that is a big part of what makes the regular season in the NFL fun. Otherwise, it's just game 4 out of 17, right? If you're not putting rivalries or storylines into it, it gets boring. But when it's San Francisco versus Seattle, it's that rivalry. You know it's going to come down to one score. You know it's going to be some good football. No matter whether, even in the years where Seattle sucked and San Francisco was a Super Bowl contender, or even the other way around, it was still going to be a fun game, right? Like, that's something special that the NFL has that I don't know if other sports can match. Because, I mean, in the NHL, and when it's January and it's like Calgary Flames versus Anaheim Ducks, game 64 of the season, like, I'm tuning in. You're not. Like, there's a lot of people who aren't tuning into that game, because who cares? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter that much, right? Like, and that is something special about the NFL that I think every other league has been trying to find a way to get to that level. And I think a big part of it is the shortened season, but I think having those special divisional matchups definitely helps.
Yeah, and I think you preserve the sanctity of that a little bit by saving the playoff spot for them. I think that's a conversation for later down the line. It's like, are you okay with having a 7-9 team in the playoffs every 5 years at the expense of these division rivalries? But with this rule, it's like you still get your playoff team. It's just necessarily the weight of it don't matter, but it doesn't matter as much. But like, if you're in the playoffs, you probably don't necessarily care. But for those teams that have earned it, it's a good reward, I guess.
Yeah. We should move on to the other rules.
We can move on to, I think, the most controversial one, the Tush push. It's
Yeah.
been in conversation to get banned for ever since it was first done, basically. Like, I think for the moment it happened,
That's
people
sick.
were like, this is stupid.
Everybody looked at it and just went, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah. I feel like I have a relatively strong opinion on this, so
Okay.
I'll send it over to you
Well-
first. Do you think they should ban the tush push?
Honestly, I wish I did a bit more research now because I think I'm going to come in with more questions than answers because I look at this photo that I brought on screen right here and I think to myself, how the hell is every single person at the bottom of that pile not hurt after that? Like, I instantly wonder about the injury concerns. So that'd be my first thing. I'm curious about whether, because I'm sure that number's out there. I'm very curious what the injury numbers are like for it. Like, do a lot of players get hurt in it? The other side of it is I know a lot of people want it gone because of how dominant it was at one point. I think it got worse without Kelsey behind it, if I remember right. But back when they had Jason Kelsey, I think that was just 2 years ago now, I think. I mean, it was dominant. They were getting it at like 80-90% of the time, and nobody really wanted that. It was too good, right? That was the concern. So, I mean, to me, if the argument is they're converting this too often, I think that's kind of lame. The one thing that I remember watching an interview, I think it was with Jason Kelsey, where he said something along the lines of, if it's too good, why isn't everybody doing it? Right? I think that point is a really, really good one. Because I think the whole idea is this is something that they are really, really good at, and nobody else can really match that skill. And I think it's lame to ban it just because they are that efficient at something. It's like banning the 3-point shot because Steph Curry hits them too often. Like, it's dumb.
Yeah.
It's a dumb thing. But if the concern is injury, I can understand that.
I will also be speaking a little bit out of my ass because I don't have the stats in front of me, but I don't think it's as much of an injury concern as you might think.
Okay.
I think the Eagles in particular have done a lot of research on it. Like, I remember Sirianni talking about in terms of, like, they have looked into the data of how, like, injury rates on tush pushes versus other plays, and it wasn't a significant difference.
I was curious. This is a report that came out 12 hours ago, actually. So clearly this is something that other people are thinking about. I'm going to quickly double-check this number because this was the immediate thing that came up, and I kind of don't believe this, but the league's internal data has revealed a 0% injury rate on tush-push plays. Nobody has ever gotten injured from a tush-push.
Wow.
I am going to fact-check that. I'm going to go read, like, the full article.
I can while you do that, because that's kind of that feels insane, just
That
knowing
feels
how the
nuts.
play looks.
Yeah.
Because the play looks like it's about to be like it looks like a 15-car pileup on the highway.
It does. That's what the play is. The whole point
Yeah.
is it is a 15-car pileup. You just make sure that your car is further than the other guy's car.
Yeah. But I think with that, if the injury rate isn't necessarily a concern, then yeah, why are you banning it? Because it's basically just a rule designed to stop one specific team from being good, and that's very lame. I can't, like, it's not like I'm an Eagles fan by any sense of the word, but I can also recognize that it's kind of just like a sore loser mentality to go out there and be like, well, this team does it really well, so we're going to ban it. Because I think the point you make with the Jason Kelsey thing is so true. It's so true in terms of, like, if everybody could do it, then why isn't everybody doing it? Like, why isn't this a widespread thing? Because the thing is, other teams have tried it, and they've sucked at it. The Eagles are just the only ones who do it good. And so the challenge should not be, how do we get this banned so that this one team can't utilize it? The challenge should be, how do we figure out how to stop this? Teams have been trying for the last 2 to 3 years, and they haven't. But defenses, it's still on you. You have to figure out a way to stop it. The rule should not be the one that does it for you, because if there's no injury concerns, the only reason you want to do this is because you're a sore loser. Like,
Well, yeah, exactly, right? Like, it's dumb logic, absolutely. And just to confirm it as well, I believe the first source that I saw it from was NBC Sports. I just read it the same thing from Sports Illustrated. No players have or I guess this doesn't include 2023, but no players in 2024 got hurt from the tush push. And that's from the Eagles, that's across every single team that tried it, even the ones that sucked at it. So, I mean, it's pretty nuts. I guess the concern is, like, what happens when you don't ban it and next year there's a 50% there's a 50% chance of players getting injured, but based on evidence you currently have in front of you, it doesn't hurt players.
Yeah. But there has been like a significant sample size in terms of like we know this play hasn't caused any injuries. If for it to spike like that, it would be so strange because it's not like this is a brand new thing. This has been a thing in the league for like 2 to 3 years. If it was going to have these insanely high injury rates, we would already see that. And if we're seeing 0, that's a pretty good sign that it's not as dangerous as it looks, right? I mean, football's a dangerous sport. Anybody can get hurt on any play. Yes. But this is not a play that is currently raising that risk to any factor.
Yeah. I was kind of curious to see if they had stats on like what a run down the middle by a running back, like a halfback dive, for example, what the injury rate on a play like that is, just as a comparison. I couldn't find it, but it's an interesting thought to me, just like the idea of like when you look at it, it really is. I don't get what makes it more risky than something like that. I think the biggest risk, you could argue it's to the quarterback because they're kind of there's one group of 300-pound men on one side, one group of 300-pound men on the other side, and basically it's just this. Like I can see how things could go wrong, but it hasn't yet, right? So it's.
I mean. Then what's the difference, even that, like the difference between that and a QB sneak? Because I think my head went, well, Mahomes got hurt in a play like that, but it wasn't a tush push, it was just a regular QB sneak.
Right.
So what, are you going to ban the QB sneak too? Then
that's lame.
I don't know.
At that
honestly,
point, we should just ban quarterbacks running. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the.
Sorry, Lamar.
Let's go back to the go back to the Peyton Manning, Tom Brady days.
Good old pocket passers.
There we go. That's what we need.
The last note I'll add on this is I think if this goes ahead, and so it needs 24 out of 32 owners to say yes to this, which again that's a high bar.
Yeah.
But who knows how mad people are about it. The one other footnote I'll add is that the proposed penalty is 10 yards for attempting a tush push, which also feels harsh. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But.
Yeah, I don't even have a response to that. Like any penalty to that would be completely counterintuitive of trying a tush push. Like, yeah, we got a yard. All right, guys, move 5 back. Like, no matter what.
It just feels like a salt in the wound type penalty. Yeah, but honestly, I think if this rule passes and the tush push is banned, I think the Eagles will just find another way around it. Yeah, I think they will find another way to do something similar, and everybody's going to kind of end up with egg on their face, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think I oddly remember having this conversation because I think this isn't the first time it's been brought up. I think we probably talked about it last offseason, which was at the end of the day, if you do want to ban the tush push, what is the big difference between a tush push, a QB sneak, and pretty much a quarterback run down the middle, right? Like, how do you identify those 3 things? And how do you basically, like you pointed out, no matter what they do, I do agree with you. I think the Eagles will just find another way to do it. They're just going to, whatever that guideline is, whatever that definition of a tush push is, they're just going to change one thing and make it legal. Right?
Yeah. So here you talk about that. Here is the definition that they propose. No offensive player may immediately at the snap push or throw his body against a teammate who is lined up directly behind the snapper and receive the snap to aid him in an attempt to gain yardage. So they're making it very specific to the push factor of it. Like that's the defining aspect of it. Even then, like I don't think I think the Eagles could run it without the push, and they would be fine. Honestly,
Yeah, I feel like
that's not necessarily.
what you could do is you could just line it up in almost the exact same way and just have the running backs run first and then quarterback go behind them. Try and create a lane.
Yeah.
Like you could do something like that. Like there's 100 ways to do it.
Yeah. No, it'll be interesting. I don't know. It depends how mad teams are about it. I hope it doesn't pass.
Yeah. It'd be
but on the other side of it, to kind of keep it on the Eagles, because they're the one who proposed this next rule, this is the one I hope does pass, because it's been kind of a scourge on the sport for a long enough time. That's the overtime rules. The overtime rules have been archaic and stupid for a long time. Pretty much since we had overtime in football, really. They've gotten marginally better as it's gone along. First, they made it so that a field goal wouldn't win the game. It used to be that if you kicked a field goal on your first position in overtime, that was a walk-off score. Then there was, obviously what happened in the picture here, where in the playoffs, Mahomes got the ball and Josh Allen never got the chance to. They changed that. The Eagles' proposition is to add that clause to the regular season to say both teams will get a chance at the ball no matter what. Same exact rules as the playoffs. And they also want to extend overtime to 15 minutes, which doesn't matter as much as that first part.
No.
I think this is great. I don't necessarily know how much we've seen the new rule in action in the playoffs. I think only on the Super Bowl, really. But it adds an extra layer and even just makes it feel a little bit more fair to say, like, both teams are getting a chance with the ball. The entire team is deciding this, not just one side of it. Like, even though obviously the regular season not as high stakes, it just doesn't make any sense why you wouldn't do this.
I don't get why you wouldn't do something. Like, there's 100. Like, we've seen, it's not like there isn't a better way to do it. We, like, in college, they have a pretty good system at this point. I'm not as knowledgeable on the nuances of it, but I understand it well enough to know that it's a lot better than what the NFL does. And I'm pretty sure the CFL has a better system, too. I think, like, while I do think that this is an improvement, I don't know why the NFL is so, like, I get it. We talk about it with every rule change, how, like, especially when we talk about the MLB, we just talked about the whole robot umps thing last week, I think. But I think it's really funny that this is a rule that the NFL wants to stick out their head on and go, no. We've had this from the start of time. We want teams to get screwed over every single time it goes to OT. It's going to be decided by a coin flip. This is the hill we're going to die on. I think that's just so silly to me. When, like, you see other teams do it better, right? Like, hell, even in I don't give the NBA credit for a lot of things because I think the NBA does a lot of things wrong. But for example, we saw I don't think the CEBL was the first league to do it, but they did the target score, which a lot of people seem to like. And then the NBA saw that and went, hey, this is kind of cool. And they brought it to the All-Star game just to kind of test it out, right? Like, seeing stuff like that is really cool. Being willing to test out stuff like that. I'd love to see the NFL go a little bit further with testing out these overtime rules. Like, heck, why not try the college system, right? Of having that kind of, it's almost like a shootout style a little bit, right?
It's so much better. So that is the way you bring that up. That is the way to do overtime in football, and it's frankly embarrassing that the NFL hasn't caught on because it's pretty much there's nuance to it, but there's pretty much the same system.
It's stubbornness.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same system in the in college football and in the CFL. It's basically the same. But basically, what it is you get both teams will get a possession from like the 20-yard line, and then it is basically a shootout from there. Your first possession, you'll go for it. You'll try to score. If you kick a field goal, the other team can win with a touchdown or tie and continue with the field goal, and then you go on from there. It works really well because the pace is quickened and it's quick possession, so it's not necessarily like long, winding drives. It's not like the game's going to go on forever, and there's efforts to kind of speed up the process as it goes along. So if you get to a point where I believe in college, it's like after 2 overtimes and the third overtime, you have to start going for 2 or something like that. And then it gets to the point where if it's gone on long enough, then you just do a 2-point conversion shootout. And then that'll end the game.
Truthfully, I don't even hate that. Like, if, like, do it like NHL, like how they do it in hockey, where it's like a three-player shootout, and then they go to sudden death. Do that with 2-point conversions. That'd be kind of neat.
So what league was it that did that?
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I'm not surprised that somebody's done that. That's a cool idea.
It wasn't necessarily like the NFL, but it was like basically it was basically like a 2-point shootout. It was the USFL, I believe, that did it.
Oh, okay.
And it was like, honestly, I like the idea. I think the full possession from the 20 is better.
Okay.
Because it allows for like a little bit more of like a build up to it, rather than just immediately like, here's one play to win or lose the game.
Well, that's what I mean by like, you have like the three best of 3 to start it off, right? In the same way that they do it in the NHL. Where you have, like, if one team scores first and the other team doesn't, that's not immediately it, right? In that sense?
That is kind of how, like, starting from the 20-yard line is, in essence, the best of 3 part of it. Because eventually it gets... Eventually, as anybody who watched the Georgia Tech college football game this year knows, you get to a certain point, and then eventually you do just start doing sudden death 2-point shootout, which is kind of gets crazy in its own way, but it is very much like a last resort kind of thing. Okay. Usually you can sort it out in that first overtime, and it at least adds like a little bit of drama to it, rather than, again, in the NFL where it's just like, oh yeah, we lost the coin toss, there's like a 90% chance we're fucked.
Guys, we just lost to a fucking quarter. Pack it in.
Yeah.
Like, this rule change is a move in the right direction. There's no denying that. It's definitely what they should have done a long time ago, for sure. I just hope they keep on pushing it. I hope they don't end it here and just go, this is as good as it gets, because it definitely isn't. I think that's more the point that I'm trying to make, more than anything else. Because even if they decide to bring both teams get a possession to the regular season, that's still the third best in third best out of the big football leagues in North America, right? Like, is depressing. That's depressing. You're the NFL. You should, like, I don't know if you'd have to pay someone to steal that rule from college football. I don't know how that would work, but they should.
No, you'd be totally fine. I don't think you can copyright a rule. They should do it. It's just all the people who are like, well, you should have won the game in 60, or like, oh, you should just have a better defense. It's just like, I don't know. Those arguments, I feel like, aren't necessary. I feel like those arguments are made by people who just want to start shit, because it's like, if you're just trying to win the game on one possession, even though, yes, you could have one. Oh, there goes my camera. I'm so passionate about NFL overtime. But no, like, it's for the people who are like, oh, well, you should have won the game on defense. That just feels, I don't know. Yes, you could have won the game by having better defense, but it's just not indicative of what your full team is like. Football is a team sport, and by team sport, it means both sides of the ball. Right. So you want to be able to have both sides of the ball, and at least be able to see the field, because otherwise that's not indicative of your team as a whole. It's just indicative to half your team, and that just doesn't feel like a satisfying way to end the game. Whenever these NFL playoff games or NFL like overtime games in general end, it's never satisfying, and that's the big issue. It's not to say, oh, all these teams, they should have just won it on defense. You could say that about anybody at any point in any game. Why even play the games? I don't know. Fuck it. Like, that's just whatever.
Imagine if in the NHL during overtimes, whoever won the face-off gets a power play.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah. Like, it's
like,
you're
lining up.
Should have had a better face-off guy. Yeah, should have had a better centerman. Exactly. Should have had sucks to suck. Should have won the face-off, I guess. Like, I don't know. It's crappy. Nobody wants that. Like, at least, like, I don't know. The NHL's overtime and shootout whole thing is not perfect by any means either. But, I don't know. At least they're better than the NFL. That can definitely be said.
Yeah, I really hope this gets passed, if not for any other reason, just to move it forward a little bit. Yeah. And move a little bit towards less archaic structures for what should be the most exciting part of a football game. whereas now it's often the most anticlimactic.
Yeah.
But we can quickly move into our last rule change here. And this one is a little bit more in the weeds, but it's interesting. I don't necessarily know if I have the exact penalties it's for, but the last proposition was for some of these penalties that get automatic first downs. Illegal contact was the big one that I looked at. Maybe defensive holding was the other one.
Oh, I can find it for you.
But yeah, it was those penalties where it's like 5 yards and an automatic first down. A team was looking to essentially nix the automatic first down part. Again, it's a little bit more in the weeds, but it's an interesting one. Essentially just lessening the value of those penalties for the offense. And I mean, it's great because usually these rule changes are in favor of the offense, and this one would be more of kind of like a benefit for the defense and not giving up that automatic first down. But what do you think of this, Simon?
I don't hate it. I mean, it's illegal contact and defensive holding. It's two penalties that don't necessarily... They're usually not drive enders for stuff like that. Like, it's usually not that big of a deal. So in that sense, I do agree with it. Like, I think it's two penalties that are a bit more minor. It's not like it's a passer interference or anything like that. It's not something that actually is deserving of a first down, right? It's not like if these things didn't happen, a first down would have happened, right? I think that's kind of the logic, if that makes sense. Where, like, if an illegal contact happens on the other side of the field and the ball gets thrown to the other wide receiver, why should a first down come from that, right? I do get that. That makes sense. With defensive holding, right? Like, that's another one where it does make a lot of sense. Like, that probably, if that wasn't the thing that caused a first down, why should the offensive team get one? So in that sense, I do like it. I do think that makes a lot of sense. I do agree with you. I think I do kind of like the fact that it's a rule in favor of defenses. It's kind of helping them out for once, which is always good. But yeah, for a lot of reasons, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's just a way to reward defenses for... I don't know. There's a lot of harsh penalties on defenses these days. It's a way to kind of ease it up a little bit in a way that wouldn't cause more injuries.
Yep, and that's the specific reason given. So it was the Lions who proposed this. And the reason they gave was competitive equity. Current penalty is too punitive for the defense. So essentially too big of a punishment for the defense. And I think that's true. Because it's like the examples you gave. This happens all the time in terms of, like it's a 3rd and 30 and you get an illegal contact on one side of the field that nixes the entire drive up to this point, basically. Where the outcome of the penalty, because the outcome of the penalty should reflect the severity of the infraction, but it's most often in cases like these where it doesn't, and it's because of the automatic first down part of it. Like pass interference, I get. Some of the other ones that are an automatic first down obviously make sense, but these two in particular are where there's a lot of frustration, and even if it isn't something I would have thought about to change the rule, like I'm glad it's being proposed. I don't think it'll pass as a lot of these, but I am glad it's being proposed. The one thing I will ask is I think that the loophole that I see is if it is like a 3rd and 30 and I'm a defender, I'm totally playing more physical knowing that this is like happening. Like I'm totally saying like, oh, well, now I can do illegal contact and holding even just off the jump, off the start of the route, because I know that I'm not going to get flagged for it. Or even if I do, whatever, who cares, right?
Right.
Is that necessarily a worry, or?
I don't know. Honestly, yeah, I'm not sure if I have an opinion on that part, because I think that's the tough thing with any rule change. We were talking about it with the Tush push, where like if you ban it, they're just gonna find another way to do it. I think you just have to take that risk, because if teams find another way around it, you fix it next offseason, right? It sucks for a year, whatever. Honestly, I think that suckage would be not as bad as teams losing entire drive enders because they accidentally held a guy on the wrong side of the field. I don't know. That's my opinion. That's my non-educated opinion. So, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe NFL teams. If NFL teams haven't, if I'm sure that there's some defensive coordinator out there who's rubbing his hands together in his evil lair, like looking at that rule change, thinking to himself how he's going to stop every third down conversion from now on. But at least to me, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but it is still a penalty, right? Like, it's still a penalty guys aren't going to want to take. Because, I mean, even in a situation like a 3rd and 13, like a 3rd and 8 is a lot different than a 3rd and 13.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it opens up a lot more possibilities for the offense. Like, I think it's a fair change in terms of, like, it wasn't fair before necessarily in terms of how it was structured. And it does feel like it's evening that out a little bit more.
Even after this,
yeah,
it's not fair. Like, the defense has never had the advantage, you could argue. At least in the last little bit.
At least it somewhat evens the playing field, at least on this specific issue, and it makes the penalty be more fitting of the crime. Like it matches it a little bit more, in my opinion. But yeah, those are the 4 rule changes. I have doubts that any of them go through because a lot of the times, very few of them, if any, do, and it needing that 2/3 or whatever it is majority is it's a high bar. But I think the one I'd like most to see through is the playoff seeding, though. I think that's probably the most exciting one that would have the biggest impact out of any of these.